Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Good day and welcome aboard. I'm Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran, Vietnam era, and my co-host, he's a gunner's mate, U.S. Navy veteran, and I got to tell you, he shot the big missiles and my planes dropped the big bombs. So we had a lot of fun way back when. Now today, we've got a very special program because on our program, we talked about help, hope, and healing. We've been talking about improving the family. Cedric talked about marriage and all of the great things that go with it. I called a friend of mine who actually started this program with me, brought me in, and then he went on to be Texas Veterans Commissioner Chuck Wright. Chuck, welcome aboard, brother.
I appreciate it. I am surrounded by squids today.
That's right. And don't you forget it.
Yeah. Just remember, it was our avgas that kept you going. Hey,
absolutely.
One of the really great things, seriously, Diane and I had a small inheritance, and we sat down with Chuck, and he worked out a tremendous program. Cedric, you and I were talking right before the show because you do so much marriage counseling. What is the biggest problem that frequently we run into? And I've had many, many young couples and young people come to me because of the work that I do in the financial world with the mortgage industry. But what is the biggest problem we run into? It's financial.
Finances.
Okay.
Finances, yes.
Credit card foul ups, man. All of a sudden they got more credit card debt than they can handle. Chuck, how did you get started when you were in the Marine Corps helping people out?
So, funny story. I had met a guy who had been in my squadron and had gotten out, and he was quite the character. And we started talking about this, and then I had another friend of ours come in to sit down with him. And when the meeting was over, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit because I noticed you asked Cedric a question and you answered it. So you got to let Cedric talk, man. He's the puppet over there, and you got to let him talk. No. Anyway, we sat down, and I was talking with another friend of ours, and when we were through, my buddy Jerry called me and said, "Hey, what are you going to do when you get out of the Marine Corps?" Because I was getting close to getting out, and I was kind of loving life in Hawaii. And I said, "Well, honestly, I'm not really sure." It's kind of that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, "Well, listen, you actually were explaining what I do to our friend better than I did. You should come talk to us." And I'm not going to mention that company because sadly they are still around, and they are I'm just going to say there's just not, people got to be careful when you get into financial services because everybody and their brother doesn't. I mean, you walk into any bank in America, they're going to tell you they can do your planning for them. But I got started with that. Unfortunately, another friend, I came back to Dallas, to DFW, actually to Fort Worth to interview. And he took me aside, older gentleman, and said, "Hey, if you're thinking about this industry, I'd like you to talk to my guy." And I started talking to, he kind of walked me into one of 5 of the best financial services firms out there. And I'm not going to mention everybody by name. I don't want to cast asparagus on anybody, but it was an absolute blessing. I wound up going to work for a great firm. And I realized I thought I had found my calling until I started working with veterans, and I realized I now have 2 callings. And if I may, I want to talk about something that is common to everyone, and many will be out there listening, nodding their heads. So people have three plans. They have the plan they think they have. They have the plan they actually have. And where I come in is to get them the plan that they need to get to where they're going. But if I may, today is President's Day, but it also marks the passing of one of the most famous Army veterans that nobody knows he's an Army veteran um, in the country. And that would be, we lost Robert Duvall sometime last night.
Oh,
He was an Army vet. Interestingly enough, his father was an admiral in the Navy and had been an instructor at the Naval Academy. And so Duvall, back in the 50s, enlisted in the Army just to make his dad mad. Now, I know anybody out there who has raised a kid that's a veteran, you know that they've got this streak of pushing back, and Robert Duvall was one of those. So we appreciate his service. He did probably the most famous is he was Colonel Kilgore in the movie Apocalypse Now, the incredible helicopter attack scene. I still say the only part of the movie that was really worth a flip, where they hit a Vietnamese village so they can go surfing, which was a little bit of a poke, but and I'm telling this story because Colonel Kilgore is actually based on an amalgamation of three Army officers, and one of them it's mostly based on one of them, but it was a great part. The other role he did before that was Patrick Conroy's adaptation of his book, The Great Santini. And if you haven't seen The Great Santini and you want to see Robert Duvall in his absolute greatness, the first role I remember him from, it's The Great Santini. It was absolutely wonderful. So I wanted to hijack the show and do a very short tribute to Robert Duvall, one of my absolute favorite actors in the world. And I mention Apocalypse Now because our own R. Lee Ermey actually had his first film part in Apocalypse Now. He talked his way onto the movie set. It's a great story. So anyway, sorry. I will get back on track, and back on track is everybody's got three plans. The plan you think you have, the plan you actually have, and the plan that you need. And, I will say one thing, Cedric, you said this, Jim kind of stole some of your thunder, but I am absolutely convinced, totally unscientific, the number one problem in the veteran community, in the family community with most Americans is their finances are not under control.
Chuck, I would even add to what you said, right? I'd go even to a fourth area of planning, and that is for that poor couple that never really had a plan. Their plan was they were living paycheck to paycheck, right? We're making, I won't even say ends meet. We're getting by, we're surviving, but we really don't have a plan, because we see a lot of that where, we see situations where one of the couples may have a plan, but the other one doesn't, and doesn't like discipline, right? Or neither of them have a plan and they're just in trouble.
Well, guys, let me tell you, I see that all the time in retired couples. And what I do is a certified senior advisor. And one of the biggest problems most people don't understand is they work all their life, they get right up to the end, and then they think of, oh, Social Security. You know what the average Social Security payment per month is in this nation? It's about
not enough. But I know you're going to answer the question you asked.
Yeah, about $1,500.
No, it is not much.
And the net result is they don't have a plan. So part of what you do, Chuck, is help them get on track.
Yep. Yeah, and there are some techniques that we can use, and let's walk through a couple of them. But Cedric, I want to come back to something that you just said.
Sure.
if you're a couple, you absolutely positively have to be on the same page.
Mm.
Because if, as you said, if one has the discipline and you ain't that one, and let's face it, guys, usually it's us,
Right.
but it doesn't matter which one. Just like one would give themselves to the Lord, you have to let that person drive that ship.
Yes.
You pick another part of your relationship that you get to drive. Taking out the trash, mowing the yard. Oh, I'm sorry, I was stereotyping there. You pick another part of your relationship you drive, but you let the one with the discipline drive.
Right.
Because for me, the first step when I sit down with somebody is I ask them where they are. And that usually leads to this really, kind of as Jim was alluding to, really vague answer. Well, we're here. Nobody wants to admit they are in the paycheck to paycheck model.
Right.
Okay. And one of the things you can really easily do to figure out kind of where you are, and then the next step to that is where is the money going? Most banks, and I just pulled this up before the show, so you can buy Quicken software. And I think I pulled up one package that was as low as $49. So everybody can afford this, but you can take your bank statements and download them into Quicken. And Quicken will start to do some of the sorting. And they'll even start to do some really cool pie charts and stuff if you're visual like I am. And you will be shocked at where the money is leaking out. And I call it leaking because it's almost not noticeable. It's like a leak that starts to go under your foundation. And over time, kind of as Jim was alluding to, you have a weak foundation. You've gotten to retirement, you're leaning on Social Security. It's just not going to be enough. But step one, and then the old joke is when you find yourself the bottom of a hole, step one is always to stop digging.
That's right.
Yeah. So where are you? Let's figure out exactly where you are. Let's download the numbers. And I know, boy, people, what's funny is I'm the world's worst at it. I can't stand doing all that stuff, but I know you have to do it.
Right.
And like I say, technology makes it a lot easier. So let's figure out where you are.
Chuck,
First and foremost.
You know what? I use that same analogy with couples quite often when it comes to them setting goals. And I'll ask the question, how do you use what is a GPS for? I'll ask that question. Well, to tell you where you're going. Say, well, how does it work? Say, well, you put in where you want to go and it tells you. Say, well, okay, but what's the very first step in a GPS really working well for you? You put the information in and say, no. What is the very first step in order for that GPS to work? The very first step is to know where you are. If you don't know where you are, then you can get directions to get anywhere, right? Yep. And then if I'm trying to get from Dallas to Chicago and the GPS starts me out on Highway 5 in San Diego, we've got a problem.
Yep.
I have to know where I am first before I can figure out where I'm going. And a lot of people really don't want to face the truth of where they are financially.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, and that's why I say we need to sit down and figure out where you are. And I know you don't want to do it,
right?
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to do it either.
It's an ugly picture. It's an ugly picture most of the time.
Guys, can I add in here too? When you're talking about a married, because I work with seniors, when you're talking about a married couple in their 60s or 70s or even in their 50s, they don't want to face the mortality situation because one of you is going to go. If all you're living on is Social Security,
yep,
or you don't know and don't understand your retirement program, because a lot of retirement programs do not have rights of survivorship. And if one of you passes away, you're going to lose a significant amount of income. And let me
Very,
tell you,
very, very common when you deal. My favorite example, although they've changed the laws with some of that now, where you cannot exclude your spouse unless she signs off on it,
Mhm.
she or he signs off on it, just because of scenarios where people would say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to take the bigger money option today, but I'm going to leave you with nothing. Well, you
Mhm.
don't kind of say that part out loud. But yeah, the laws have changed a little bit for that. But you're absolutely right, Jim. You
or
can you can cut
the
somebody out of your life so easily.
Mhm.
yeah. And the worst thing I ever saw was a couple, and she was younger. She was in her early 60s. He was in his middle to late 60s, and she had a fabulous retirement from a New York, a Wall Street company, and
Mm-hmm.
she had a freak stroke, excuse me, and died. Bang. $8,000 of their monthly income was gone.
Mhm.
Yep.
Her Social Security and her pension. And all of a sudden, they'd been living on $10,000 a month, and now this guy had two.
Yep.
And I said, you got to do something. And it was so tragic because he literally started crying and said, I can't, this was my dream. I can't give it up. And I said, here's the numbers. Here's how many months you've got before you run dry.
Yep.
And I
And
talked
and
with a
what you've
realtor later,
just
and he
done
did.
is unfortunately something that holds so many of us back. We make decisions based on emotion,
Mhm.
not on logic.
Right.
And no, I'm not trying to talk politics there, although it's true there too. I am shocked at how many people don't look at what the numbers are. But one of the things, in the very first step, and if you're a couple, you need to sit down and look at each other and make a conscious decision. Yes, we're going to figure out where we are today, and we're going to put ourselves on a path to make wherever we are better. And there's a couple pieces to that path, but I want to talk about my absolute favorite financial advice, no matter how old you are. Because here's the thing, it doesn't matter how old you are. And you've got to have something there. So there are people that if you're 70 years old and just relying on Social Security, man, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you're kind of screwed. Now, having said that, 70-year-olds are still more than capable of working. So one of your solutions might be if you're 70 years old, living on Social Security, and thanks to the BBB, Social Security income is now, for the most part, tax free. You go back to work. I'll tell you the other reason you want to do it. You have a reason to get up every morning.
There you go.
If you physically can't get up, you can't move around well, there are things you can do online. But if you're out of money, start raising money. I just had this conversation a little bit different. This was about health insurance that I had a friend of mine. They are creating a software company. It's worth millions and millions and millions, but they refuse to sell it yet. They won't let it go. Back to the emotion, not the logic. And they're in very poor health. And the wife was going to have to go back to work. She'd been doing the marketing for this software company. Well, worried about health insurance. I gave them a list of 15 companies that will allow um, their part timers to be on their health insurance. And two of them I could think of, and I think of them because when I go around the corner from as we get out of our neighborhood, I see a Chase National Bank right next to a Starbucks. And those are two of the companies. And I told her, I said, if you're going to go back to work for a company that will allow you to do it part time because you don't care about the income as much about the health insurance. Jim.
I'll tell you what we're going to do, Chuck. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back in just a second and continue this conversation. And basically, it's talking about financial planning. How do you take care of yourself? Because when the money runs out, it's no bueno. And there's a lot of things that we've got to help you to get down the road. But the first thing, and Chuck mentioned this, if you're not disciplined, then you need to get disciplined one way or the other. So this is Jim Blythe and Cedric White. We're talking with Chuck Wright with Lone Star Wealth Strategies. He is a great financial advisor. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Welcome back. Hey, this is Jim Blythe and Cedric White.
Yes, sir.
Cedric, we're talking about financial advice and getting down the road. I see it from the standpoint of working with the elderly. Chuck, you got started working with young Marines, young guys coming right out of the military. And then Cedric, you basically work with couples that are going through it.
Every aspect, every walk of life. Yeah. And it becomes quite interesting. You know, we finished before the commercial talking about older couples, but it happens. I'll say this. I wish someone had talked to me about finances when I was in my early 30s, maybe even before, right? I did not start focusing on future finances until I was well into my 40s. And, you know, thank God I was able to make some decisions, make some right plans. But for most people, especially young people today, they are smarter, right? But still, that plan for the future, most of us don't have it. And then we fall in love with somebody, and there's somebody that don't come from a background that has financial education. Then we have to figure it out as we go. And what Chuck is talking about, I love it from a veteran's perspective, the ability to assist veterans. Because Chuck, as you were talking, I was going to ask you, I get a lot of advertisements from different organizations that talk about credit, repair, and financial consolidation, consolidate your finances and things like that. What are your thoughts on those kind of things?
Well, you're jumping to my topic number 3, but let's talk about that for a second. And then I'm going to come back to number 2, because I'm going to give a very simple piece of advice that anybody can apply, pretty much anybody. I mean, homeless guys can put money in the bank. Now, I used to joke that, you know, I talk to people about investing $1 a day. And I make the comment, I had homeless guys who can afford that. So don't tell me you can't afford it. But let's talk about debt for a second. And debt is the killer. Debt is the anchor to people's finances. And part of the problem is debt is so easy to get, especially if you're willing to pay 25, 30, 40% in interest. You know, and that used to be called
usury,
the legal term loan sharking.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's legal because the banks are doing it. So they're more than happy to give you money at that rate because they're making a fortune on it. And it's just so easy to go out and get all these things that you want. They may not be things that you need, but they're things that you want. You want to buy a little nicer car. You want to get new clothes. There's all these things you can spend your money on. But what happens is very rapidly, you know, oh yeah, I can do that for $10 a month. I can do that for $30 a month. And it isn't long. You've eaten up all of your paychecks. So you are absolutely right. Debt is the big killer. Now, you've got to be careful because some of these, I am not opposed to somebody going out and doing a consolidation loan, lowering the interest rates on all the credit cards, paying everything off, and having a lower monthly payment. But the caveat is you got to stop using those credit cards because it's not going to do any good if you just go out and run them all back up again.
Discipline.
The other advantage of doing something like that, if you are upside down credit-wise with a consolidation loan, is you've instantly paid off all this debt. Your credit ratios, just like your housing ratio, your income to debt becomes lower. That makes you a better credit risk. Excuse me, sorry. Um, and now you can borrow money at a lower rate, because I'm not saying don't borrow money. Don't cut up the credit cards. It's actually not a good idea to cancel your credit cards, because that hurts you as well. Keep them there, keep them going. Every month, take a different credit card out, spend $30 on it and pay it off, because that keeps the credit card active. But what you're doing is you're building your credit score. In the range, and this is what the banks use, the range is to buy a house. And we'll get to that in a second, because I'm still absolutely convinced that real estate is one of the best ways to accumulate wealth in America, still to this day. And the beauty of rent is the beauty of a mortgage is you're not paying rent. You are building equity. Yes, sir.
Hey, Chuck, we need to take another break to get with our sponsors that are helping us out. So why don't we go ahead and do that, because you're coming into my world and talking about something that I'm really, really passionate about, and that's veterans home loans. And we've got a lot of things that can do to help that person get there. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after these words from our partners. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. And we're back. I got to tell you, we were just talking, and Chuck made the point about wealth building. And one of the things is we were talking about credit. I've talked to people that say, I don't have credit cards. I don't use credit cards. Well, that ain't going to help you buy a home, because then you won't have any credit at all. And that there are ways to get alternative credit, but that can be very problematic. When you screw up your credit, that's even worse. And one of the things you talked about, a consolidation loan, there are some of these companies they say, okay, we'll do a bill consolidation loan, and we've got an agreement with the lenders. They don't. So they take your money.
You got to watch the scams, and that's absolutely
and what
true.
happens is your credit then is totally blacked out, and all of a sudden you got everybody and their uncle filing judgments against you. You got to be real careful about how you go about doing that.
And you notice that I talked about a consolidation loan, but let's go back a step, because I think you can do an entire show, and I'd recommend that. We can get Mallory Morris on from the Texas Veterans Land Board. We can get the people from Veterans United. There are a lot of companies that will do mortgages for our veterans. You can do an entire show about that, and I think that'd be wise. But I'm going to go back to what is my number two. And this is the easiest advice I ever give people. You literally will not forget it. You'll forget a lot of things that I say, sadly, but you won't forget this. And I tell couples all the time, where you are is important if you want to know you're going to Chicago, to use Cedric's analogy for earlier. But the first thing that you need to do, one, you got to have a car, and you got to put gas in the car before you even worry about going anywhere. You have to pay yourself first. And I want to talk about the best easy read you're ever going to find, or you can Google it, and he does seminars. It's a guy named David Bach, wrote a book, B-A-C-H, and it's called The Automatic Millionaire. Oh. And he talks about putting all of this on automatic. Now, most of us get paid by electronic fund transfer. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're working for a company, the company probably has a 401k. If the company is matching that 401k, what is another term for those matching dollars?
Free money.
Free money?
Exactly right. It's free money. If they're matching your 401k, that is free money. And you never want to leave free money on the table. I do this example when I do 401k presentations for companies, is I'll pull out a $10 bill and says, who's got a 5? You'll trade me for this 10. And it's funny because at first, everybody think, oh, there's a hook, there's a catch. And finally somebody goes, well, here, I got a $5 bill, and I make the trade. And we go through the meeting, and it's not unusual for people to walk up afterwards and said, hey, do you want your 10 back? And I'm like, no, that's the deal. I'm trying to reinforce the deal. If they're giving free money, take free money. Here's the other thing. Your 401k gets taken out of your check before you ever see it. You've never noticed it. Now, this is where I was going with the direct deposit for your bank account. When your money hits that direct deposit, you tell your bank, let's say you get paid every biweekly like the federal government does. So you 26 paychecks a year. So that every time I get a check, I want $25, $50, whatever that number is, to go into my savings account. Why? Because I want to build up that savings account, because guess what's going to happen? We talked about a car. Well, eventually that car is going to need repairs. It's going to need new tires. It's going to need something like that. I want that savings account. So if something goes wrong with my car, or I need new tires, instead of putting that on a credit card, I pull it out of savings and I pay cash for it. And guess what? I haven't gone further into debt, because if I put that on a credit card, I'm now further in debt. So not only do I have to pay for the repair, but I got to pay interest. I got to pay the credit card, and that's run back up. And there's a balancing act you can do with all of this. But the idea of creating a savings account, and I'm going to tell you one, people use savings accounts all the time. And one of the biggies is to go on vacation. You get a week's, 2 weeks vacation every year, whatever it is, and you and the wife want to go to the islands. And we can do that relatively inexpensively. We're here in DFW. But if you live up north, oh man, you want to get out of the winter? Yeah, baby, Cancun and Cozumel looking real good. But again, do not put things like that. Do not go out to dinner on a credit card. On a debit card is okay, because that's money is coming right out of your checking account. But don't put dinner on a credit card. If you need a credit card to pay for dinner, you know, it's not hard to have a great evening. We actually did this year for Valentine's. We made Italian and listened to Dean Martin music and drank good wine. And it was a great night. We had a lot of fun. We didn't spend a lot of money because, face it, Valentine's is kind of like New Year's. It's amateur night, and we don't want to go fight the amateurs. But I think you can see where I'm going with this. You start to be a little more tactical about how you spend your money.
Chuck, for those of us who are young, who is Dean Martin? No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I am so very different. But for you, Cedric, I'll say, you know what? You got to tune in a little Taylor Swift. You seem like a Taylor Swift kind of guy. Oh, if you don't know the greatness of Dean Martin, I'm telling you,
but I know some of our listeners. Some of our listeners will be wondering, who is Dean Martin? Go check out Jerry Lewis. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing.
We're basically talking about is manage your money. Because if you don't manage your money will manage you. And how easy to do. Everybody's got a computer today who's under the age of whatever, down to 5 years old. There are Excel spreadsheets. You talked about QuickBooks has got a deal. There are several.
Quicken for individuals, QuickBooks for a company.
Yeah. Is put in that budget. And what do you spend?
Well, like I said, most of the banks will download it straight to your, and there's Peachtree and there's several others. I don't want to do an advertisement for Quicken per se, but most of the software packages will download to something like that. It's very easy to do. It makes it very, very easy. But let's go back to that number one that we were talking about, because this is so important. where are you, and talking to each other. And guess what? If you guys make a commitment to growing real wealth, um, all of a sudden having a special date night where you fix food and you both participate in fixing food, or hey, here's another idea. And we've got one of the barbecue places close to us. And about twice a year, we head over to that and we attend one of their barbecue cooking classes. And let me tell you, it's so much more fun than a date, and the food is so much better. And now you know how to fix food, and you've got something that you can entertain others, and for the price. And we figured it out. We took my son to Bob's Steak and Chop House, which is not an inexpensive place, but he loves it. And we've realized that we can grill steaks at home that are relatively close in. I'll give Bob's credit. They do a great steak, but we're doing it as good as home for less than half the price.
A whole lot less than half.
Yeah, really.
Chuck.
Probably a lot less than that. So again, one of the things that I'm talking about, and this involves something, and Cedric, you can talk about this better, communication.
Bingo.
This gives you guys something to talk about, but it does it in a manner where it's not and you can't get into this. And Cedric, I'm sure you're going to back me up on this. If you're a couple, you can't blame the other one. It's, we're going to take this on and we're going to go fight it. And this is what we're going to do and how we're going to go after it. Because if you're with high maintenance Michelle, sorry, she's listening to this. I'm going to get hit when I go downstairs. And she needs that expensive dinner on a regular basis. She's not on the same page with you, and it's going to sabotage your financial plan.
Right.
But if you say, let's limit this. We've been going out every other week. Well, let's go out and make it really special every other month. Mm-hmm. But let's have these nights where we fix food. It becomes date night.
Right.
We turn off the ringers on the cell phones, and it's just us. And maybe we throw in a movie. And again, for our movie this year, it was the Kevin Costner movie with Jennifer Aniston, which was absolutely, rumor has it, which is supposedly based on the longtime rumor behind a really old movie called The Graduate, that was supposedly based on a real family from Pasadena. And they build up this whole story of how this all happens, and but the movie is absolutely hysterical at times. And I like funny movies because I don't normally do chick flicks.
But Chuck, you hit on some very, very vital things there, right? You started out with communications. You mentioned alignment, which is what we talk about a lot of times with couples, because most of the time what we run into is there's not an alignment. We'll have two individuals with goals, but they're not matching goals. We're not in alignment, right? And so then you go there. Then you even mentioned, you had the audacity to mention putting down the cell phones. Oh my goodness. To take the focus off of social media, take the focus off of the likes and things, and to work on something common within the home that's going to better us probably immediately. If we'll stop going out, if we'll start to plan, and then we reward ourselves when we get to a specific spot. Let's reward ourselves for doing good. Then we can go out and then start back over, right? Yeah. So it's not just a one-time thing. This is a continual progression of security for your family and for your legacy. It's very important.
Very important. And one of the things, Chuck, you touched on this a few minutes ago, and that's the importance of real estate, home ownership. You got to have a roof over your head unless you want to be homeless. And nothing, I think, helps a family be solid and secure more than owning their own home.
Jim keeps jumping way ahead of me. So we're going to get there, Jim. But Cedric has just set me up. as I slide into my next point. So now we've got a car, we've put gas in the car, we've got tires on the car. We got to figure out where we're going. This is one of the things that will help a couple to communicate. It will help a couple to align. And I haven't forgotten about you, Jim, because one of those goals may very well be, what do we need to do to get ourselves in our own home? So let's sit down and we talk about this, and maybe we're talking about this with a financial advisor, or maybe we're talking about this with somebody that we trust. But what's happening all of a sudden is we're starting to pull ourselves into alignment. If the goal is, we want to 12 months from now, we want to be in this home. Okay. We need to figure out, and this is one of those steps, but where are we going? Are we going to Chicago? Are we going to live in a gated community? Are we going to buy a starter home? What does this look like when we start to get further and further down the road? Let's have a common goal that will pull our alignment, just like a car needs to be realigned. And I will say this, and I am going to do an ad for Firestone because they do lifetime wheel alignment. Mm-hmm. They hate me because I keep my cars for 5-6 years. We drive the tires off our cars. And one of the ways I can do that is I go in 2-3 times a year and Firestone aligns my tires for free. And that gives me better mileage on my tires because we wind up traveling a lot. But we do things like that. It's more expensive up front. It's about the cost. You pay for about 2 alignments up front. Long since I'm making money on Firestone. But the point is, we start to do things, for example, to make the car last longer. Do we need a new car every other year? Detroit would love to sell you on that idea. And they build cars that you pretty much have to replace every 2 years. I'm not a big fan of Detroit. I am a big fan of Toyota. In fact, I'm going to bring in a part to this. I'm going to take a step sideways, but I think it directly relates. There was a book with a great concept. It is as dry reading as it can be. It is almost textbook boring, but it's got a lot of great words in there, and it's called The Millionaire Next Door. You would be shocked at the financial circumstances of your neighbors. Some of them are doing great, and you want to look just like them, and some of them, believe it or not, are worse off than you are right now. The guys who are successful, the guys and girls, I use the term generically, the automatic millionaire is how to get there. But you get there by having certain attitudes. And one of those attitudes is they don't buy their cars brand new. That millionaire next door, they buy it about 2 years old. And Toyota and Honda and some of these manufacturers like this have made this viable because you can buy a 2-year-old Toyota. You can't tell from a brand new one on the lot. I like Toyota, so I kind of advertise for Toyota, but they're not the only one. And then they drive them, and they're not trying to impress anybody with the car they drive. Now, I will say this: once in your life, you gotta own your dream car. Once in your life, but don't do that out of the gates.
Don't do that out of the gates. Don't do that initially. You
don't do that initially.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask a question. What is the most cost effective? What is the cheapest car when you measure purchase price, cost of maintenance, and then value at sales? What is the most cost effective? What is the cheapest car to own?
Probably a Honda.
Close. It's actually a Mercedes.
Uh-huh.
Now, very expensive to get into. You get a lot back.
Yeah, the resale.
But the same thing. They're all close. Honda, Toyota, Mercedes.
All right, let's take a
Gamers, not
break
so
real
much.
quick. Love that commercial. All right. Hey, this is the Veterans Impact Show. We're with Chuck Wright. We're talking about your money. Cedric White is amazing when it comes to marriage counseling and talking about money with married people. I work with the seniors, but Chuck works with everybody, making sure that they got plenty of money. So we'll be right back after these words from our partners. This is your Veterans Impact Show.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
All right, we're back. I got to take a quick time around the clock to say, hey, I want to say thank you to the Hope Center for providing us with studios. I want to say thank you to my company, Fairway Independent Mortgage. My MLS number is 311-548. Medical provider Integrative Health, Symbios. Amazing what they're doing to save lives of veterans. Now, we're going to go back to Lone Star Wealth Strategies and Chuck Wright talking about getting yourself paid back and then investing for the future. And Chuck, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so let's narrow down and focus here at the end.
So one of the things I'd like to do is to kind of go back to my number 2, which is pay yourself first, especially if you have access to a 401k at work. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make at every age bracket, they invest too conservatively. Over time, the more risk you take, generally speaking, the more you're rewarded. And part of it, there's a couple pieces of safety that are unintentionally built into 401ks. For one, 99 times out of 100, you're investing in some form of a mutual fund or managed asset. So you have diversity of investment. But you're also, that's a technique called dollar cost averaging. So the one thing I wanted to say about this is be more aggressive than you are now. Now, if you're one of those, you want to roll the dice and you want to make a fortune, all this stuff, you're good. You don't need to get any more risk. But if you're a little bit risk adverse, you need to push yourself a little here and you'll be rewarded later. The other thing I'd like to talk about, if you're not participating in 401k or you're not putting as much as you should in, if you're doing nothing up to about 3-4%, every January or every December, however you want to do that, put it on your calendar, set it recurring, and increase it by just 1%. You are not going to notice 1% coming out of your paycheck, excuse me. And what happens is you've now built a systematic way, and they'll talk about this in Automatic Millionaire, that you're increasing what you're doing without feeling the pain. So if the plan says, well, you need to put away 12% of your income and you're doing 0, you try to do 12 and you're going to feel the pain. No. Do 2, do 3, and then every year build on it and build on it and build on it. And it was one of the things that I wanted to say, because that's how you start to grow retirement wealth. If you're near retirement and that pile's not big enough, there are things we can do to increase your retirement income up to 30%, 0 risk. It can actually lower the risk on your portfolio, increase the income that you're getting, and increase your return.
Chuck,
so that's my commercial for me.
How can people get a hold of you?
Actually, the best way is through the show. Contact Jim, contact Cedric. It's CW Wright, 2 W's, at eaglestrategies.com. That's the registered investment advisor firm that Lone Star Wealth Strategies is a part of. So C, 2 W's, RIGHT, at eaglestrategies.com. Probably the best way. And literally, I'm in the process of building out my new website right now. It's not ready. I'm doing all these slick, fancy things like the logo behind me to increase the brand awareness.
Well, you're going to have a book coming out in 3 or 4 or 5 months, and I'm excited about that because we want to promote that. 3 weeks?
3 months.
3 months?
3 months.
Okay, that will be great. The other thing is Texas Veterans Commission. Most people don't have any idea of what all you guys do. So go to Texas Veterans Commission and take a look at it. And Chuck Wright is one of the commissioners. He's the commissioner for North Texas. You need benefits. You need to know. You need workforce solutions. You're just coming out of the military and you're getting a new start in life. Go make your first stop, the Texas Veterans Commission. Correct, brother?
And let me give you another email, and I'd love it if you'd post on your site. A veteran in Texas needs anything, it's info, at TVC, the letters TVC dot Texas spelled out .gov, G-O-V.
Okay, and this is really important. So again, we will put this on the Veterans Impact Show website. Also, we tell you, hey, get out there, be a part, go to the events. If you know a veteran who's isolating, you know a veteran who's having trouble, if you have a family member that's a veteran having trouble, connect with us. There is a way to get you help through the VA or through many of the organizations that support veterans. We're here to save your life. And one of the big things is you need to save your life financially. And that's what we're also here for. So, Cedric, we like to close with a prayer.
Yes, sir.
Would you please lead us?
Gladly, gladly. So, Father God, in your name, we thank you for people like Chuck who are willing to come alongside, willing to give advice, willing to assist in areas of finances, because that's this world is operated on finances. And you said that no man can serve two masters. He would love one and hate the other. We're going to love money or hate money, or love you and use money. And our purpose is to become more educated in our use of finances and working together, finding the tools that are out there. So help us. And again, thank you for the Chuck Wrights of the world who would do just that. So, Father, we ask that you be with us, help our veterans, help our military, help this country. And Lord, help us to come back to being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Chuck. Thank you so much for all you do for veterans and all you do for those of us who come to you to get financial help in the areas that maybe we don't know about. You want to know about annuities. You want to know about investments. You want to know about strategies. This is the guy you go to. This is the guy I go to. So I'm telling you, this is important. Also, it's important to be able to network with veterans. Go to the meetings, go to the opportunities, look us all up. There are chances to partner and to get to know Chuck Wright, because he goes to just about everything in North Texas. It's amazing. And if you want to get to know Cedric White, Healing Thine Heart's Ministries, and me, just Jim at veteransimpactshow.com and Cedric at veteransimpactshow.com. We're here for you. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Thank you for being on board. Thank you for helping to take care of our veterans. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.